Imagine being trapped in a prison, but there are no locks, no guards, and absolutely no physical walls. Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to explore the psychological architecture of high control groups. Specifically, we'll be charting how one creator bravely reclaimed their personal sovereignty after leaving the FIGU UFO cult, as detailed in their video series, Leaving the Stars for the Soil, specifically Video 7, No Physical Walls. Let's dive right in. You know, when we hear the word cult, we almost instinctively picture these remote compounds, physical barriers, total isolation from the outside world, right? But what happens when the prison is constructed entirely out of ideas, complex terminology, and spiritual threats? Today, we're looking at an absolute masterclass in deconstruction. We're following the journey of a creator who spent years deeply embedded in the orbit of Billy Meier and his organization FIGU before finally breaking free. To understand how someone actually gets trapped in a situation like this, we first have to untangle their pure, innocent motivations from the manipulative systems that exploit them. Section 1. Wonder versus cult dogma. Healthy search versus control. So there is a totally necessary and distinct separation between a healthy, beautiful fascination with the cosmos and the toxic authoritarian dogma peddled by leaders like Billy Meier. When the creator was spiritually searching, the profound mysteries of outer space were just deeply appealing. And Billy Meier? Well, he presented what looked like a grand, unified cosmic theory. But behind all the pseudoscientific terminology and the promise of extraterrestrial contact, hid a really rigid ideology. Meier's framework, which was cleverly disguised as neutral logic, actually housed eugenic undertones, this weird obsession with the degeneration of humanity, and a strict spiritual hierarchy where his word was absolute law. It is just so crucial to separate that very human desire for cosmic wonder from the manipulative structures that hijacked it. Section 2. Prisons without physical walls. Low physical control. Okay, let's look at how a cult actually functions when it doesn't use a physical compound. The key takeaway here is that a low physical control environment traps your mind by making you feel like you literally owe the group your spiritual evolution. Think about it. You don't need a physical lock on the door if the member fundamentally believes that walking out that door will result in a cosmic catastrophe. FIGU operates publicly under the guise of this objective, secular organization studying border sciences. But internally, it operates with fundamentalist religious control, using incredibly complex language to completely isolate its members from reality. Based on Dr. Janja Lalich's structural elements of bounded choice, we can actually reverse engineer the blueprint of this invisible prison. It's like a giant puzzle. First, you have a charismatic authority, in this case, Billy Meier claiming to be the exclusive conduit to advanced cosmic truth. Then you pair that with a transcendent belief system that promises ultimate salvation, which, of course, is used to justify any personal sacrifice you make. And finally, you have these rigid systems of control and influence that ensure you only consume the group's information, creating a completely self-sealing loop of logic. It's wild. The scary part is, you only start to realize you're in a prison when you actually notice these invisible control mechanisms. One of the absolute most insidious tools used here is spiritual blackmail. FIGU teaches this concept of spirit forming, basically suggesting that your spirit carries wisdom across multiple lives and that following Meier is literally the only way to evolve. While this sounds kind of beautiful on the surface, it is heavily weaponized. It plants a terrifying seed in the follower's mind. If I leave, I am delaying my soul's progress across multiple lifetimes. That pure existential fear, that is the invisible wall. Section 3. The duck test and departure. Breaking the architecture. Applying the good old duck test allowed the creator to finally look at the group's behaviors under a sober light. They realized that despite the cool sci-fi framing, it ticked every single box of a destructive cult. They stepped back and saw the stark reality. An infallible leader who claims a special lineage, literally asserting he's the reincarnated spirit of major historical prophets, who demands absolute authority and whose group utilizes extreme behavioral control. When you strip away the aliens and the spaceships, the underlying power structure is identical to every other high-control group in history. It walks like a cult, and it for sure quacks like one. Now, the illusion didn't just break overnight. Throughout 2018 and 2019, this invisible architecture began to crack under the weight of verifiably false prophecies. The creator's internal shelf of belief was really straining at this point. But the true breaking point, It was a staggering internal contradiction. Christian Frenner, a key figure in the group, admitted point blank that he would lie. And furthermore, Meier's own texts assert that prophets lie to their followers. This is a deeply manipulative safeguard, right? It totally excuses bad evidence by claiming the deception is intentional, just to turn away those who aren't ready. The sudden realization that the leadership was entirely comfortable with deception initiated the truly harrowing emotional warfare of finally walking away. Section 4. Responsibility and sunk costs. Leaving is actually only the first step. The true challenge is dealing with the psychological aftermath. The sunk cost fallacy makes these groups incredibly sticky, because walking away means admitting you lost time, you lost community, and you lost the worldview you painstakingly built. When you leave, you don't just magically heal. You have to actively question your own motivations, your own gullibility, and your fundamental understanding of reality. Walking away isn't a clean break. It is an agonizing process of giving up the certainty that you had invested years of your life into. This brutal realization of sunk costs is exactly why the creator made their video series in the first place. They framed their deep sense of responsibility to their followers not as this burden of shame, but as a courageous act of radical integrity. The creator had publicly promoted these teachings, so by speaking out now, they aren't just distancing themselves, they are doing public spiritual repair. It's a powerful acknowledgement that smart, really well-intentioned people can get caught in harmful systems, and that clearing the air is absolutely essential before you can build a new, authentic foundation. Section 5. The Free Thinker's Paradox. Escaping to a New Cage. To truly deconstruct all of this, we have to look at the free thinker's paradox. It's this tragic irony where you believe you are breaking free, but because you crave structure, you simply swap one dogmatic authority for another. The creator noted their journey into this UFO group started right after leaving evangelicalism. When someone leaves a strict environment, they often leave behind the specific theology, but their psychological architecture remains totally primed for absolute certainty. And this psychology doesn't just apply to UFO groups, by the way. It's the exact same vulnerability that pulls people into modern socio-political echo chambers. They're vulnerable to the exact same power dynamics, just dressed in different clothes. So when you abandon a cherished worldview, it creates an immense epistemological void. It's a chaotic, psychological vacuum that cults explicitly target with the promise of certainty and belonging. Imagine that profound feeling of being plunged into a whirlpool of existential questions, suddenly craving instructions in a secular world where literally none are provided. This acute spiritual pain makes individuals highly susceptible to love bombing, where a new group just showers them with validation and instant community, completely overriding their underdeveloped boundaries. And in that void, a cult pseudo-identity quickly takes root. If you don't dismantle this underlying identity, you remain fundamentally bound to the need for a prophet to tell you what is true. The pseudo-identity is built on introjects. These are toxic, unexamined beliefs swallowed whole from an authority figure. It creates a pervasive internal narrative that you cannot trust yourself, that your intuition is flawed, and that you must rely on an external locus of control. Until this pseudo-identity is metabolized, the cycle of seeking out gurus will simply keep repeating. Section 6. Reclaiming your personal sovereignty. Trusting yourself again. So how do we heal from this? Well, we have to normalize this vulnerability with deep, deep compassion. Seeking community, wonder, and meaning is a beautiful human trait, and it is never your fault when manipulative systems weaponize those needs. The longing for a shared reality, for purpose, and to understand the cosmos, these are the very things that make us beautifully human. High control groups exploit these unmet needs. Recognizing this is the absolute first crucial step in stripping away the shame of having been manipulated. The ultimate triumph of this entire journey is the realization that your mind belongs to you. You never needed a middleman to access the wonder of the universe. You don't need someone selling you a cure when you were never sick to begin with. Billy Meier, or any other self-proclaimed authority, doesn't owe you anything, and far more importantly, you do not owe them your spiritual autonomy. Leaving a cult isn't the end of the story. It is the messy, beautiful beginning of reconstructing your worldview from scratch and learning to build authentic systems of care. It requires actively cultivating media literacy, really learning how to spot manipulative terminology and emotional capture. It requires relational intelligence, building connections based on mutual aid rather than extraction. But most importantly, it requires the absolute radical act of refusing to ever again outsource your discernment to anyone else. Because true freedom isn't just about escaping the physical or invisible walls placed around you. It's about having the courage to stand in the open space and realize you are fully equipped to navigate the universe entirely on your own. So I want to leave you with this one question to ponder. When the walls disappear, will you trust your own gut?